Okay, there's a very good book called Illusions by the author's name is Richard Bach, and we want to remind you that some of these books, and this is an older book, it might be like 1980s, are spiritual classics. And so Illusions is an interesting story, and this is going to be like, if you don't want to know anything about the book, then go get the book and read it, and then you can watch the rest of this video later. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the book. We are really enthused about this book, Illusions, and I bought it as a gift for, it's a good one to give as a gift for whenever, like right now. It's like buy it and then get it and then gift it to yourself or somebody else, because it's a wonderful book. And the story is about a man who has superpowers. And the moral of the story, one way of looking at this, there's multiple things in this book. It's not just this one thing. There's like so much really interesting stuff for your mind candy, this book. And we want to tell you that there's also more and more interest in spiritual classics as people try to figure out how to navigate with too much information and too shitty quality of the information. It's like you have to open up your own cryptography school and your own spy school and your own you have to open up your own CIA for yourself in your mind. Actually, I do have a department in my mind, and it's called our research department. And the head of our research department is not going to say who they are, but they're going to mostly just tell you about our research department. Now, one of the characters who does play a role there is known as Me. She's about 24 years old. She's got long brownish hair, not dark brown, sort of light brown hair. She wears funny glasses from like the 1970s. And anyway, she looks like Bailey Quarters from WKRP in Cincinnati. So, okay, so M&M at the research department, they don't tell us what they do. Pretty much what we think is she and the lady Notochord and the other women that are around, it's like a big dressing room. It's a huge dressing room with their individual stations where they can get their hair done, do makeup, do their nails. It's basically ladies only. They would not let gay men in there, no. Transsexuals, yes, they would allow transsexuals in there. Okay, what else do we want to know about research department? Well, if you're interested in some anomaly or some patterns, we ask them to look for patterns in our experiences. We mark down anomalies, like if you saw a UFO, then yeah, it would be like research is not always monitoring us, and sometimes they get really drunk and they forget all about doing any kind of spy work, and then they do their womanly fun stuff, girls' night outs and stuff. So but we still have the department because we like to have these departments. We have another office that's called Claridad Central, and their job is to be the attorney that gets you off the hook. Spiritual attorney. In other words, it looks like you're guilty of a horrible sin, and you need some way to explain how it all happened, and Claridad Central would help us use like our own wisdoms to diffuse a bad situation. And pretty much what it is it's a guilt remover, because the way that we always say, we always use different words, but if you think that you've done something horrible and you got horrible guilt and you're totally pickled, in other words, you can't even get off the bed because you feel so horrible, it's like you've got like an internal parental figure a super ego that keeps going, bad, you're bad, you're bad. And so it's a horrible vibration to be stuck in. And when we use Claridad Central, it also, what they do is they just diffuse the idea that you did something. It's not that the body didn't do something wrong. Sometimes the body could do something really nasty, but it's to get some part of the mind to look at it and say, you know, I'm a human mind and I don't understand like how our creativity arises. And, you know, the idea that somehow I know everything that's going on is stupid. I'm not smart enough. So something else is organizing all of these weird things that are going on, good, bad, or indifferent. And I'm simply here as the silent witness, witnessing all of this go on. So, you know, if I'm the silent witness and the mind figures out, well, we're presenting this to the awareness that's riding around inside of us, and it's pretty, we pretty much have to figure out a way so that we can get ourselves out of this situation of constant feeling like anxiety and guilty feelings and just horrible vibrations. So I don't know how it's going to happen, but Claridad Central will be in charge of it. And what they basically say is, it's not my energy. And that could be like for them especially, it's not me. This energy coming that seems to be around me is not me. And then their job is to say, I'm giving it back. And they don't give it back to where it came from. They give it back to God or higher power. I'm not capable of handling this. This is not even mine. I don't do any creations whatsoever. I'm simply... So it basically does that. And we use it quite a bit when it comes to people who seem to be expressing superpowers. It's like the person is in a certain consciousness field, and if you're in the field, then supernatural things can happen. It was described by Dr. David R. Hawkins in some of his works, these spiritual superpowers, and he said you have to watch out because it's a huge spiritual trap. That is, if supernatural things start happening around you and you think it's something to do with you, your personality is so blessed that you get to do superpowers, he says it's a horrible trap because you believe it. You believe you're the next Superman. And he said it, he experienced these spiritual superpowers himself. One time at an accident, he said that he felt like a whole pile of energy was leaving his body and going towards the accident, like a healing energy. So, but he said you have to realize it's a field effect. It comes from a field of consciousness, and the consciousness is, the consciousness field is what you would do. It's not you. So even if something happens that, you know, you have a superhuman strength and you're able to, you know, do an amazing amount of weight, like you tip over a car or something while you're trying to rescue a baby, the rest of the time you can't do this. Anyway, he said, don't say you're doing anything. That's what we use Claridad Central for. Because Stuart Wilde, the metaphysical author, also talked about this, where you start having like a fantasy life that you think is real. He said Claridad was like, you are in a dream. I don't know how, I'm trying to figure it out. He wrote it, it was on an internet web board somewhere. Very obscure, but I went looking up, I was doing search terms in order to find it, and I found it, and he talked about this Claridad, and it said it was like among even his followers, some of the people would have a Claridad, and it was like they were having maybe a separate reality experience. And then when other people who were around, they basically said, that's not real. It's a fantasy you had, ha ha ha. But so what really happened to these people? If you had this experience, you have to be aware that if it sounds too off the wall and cuckoo pants, that people are going to think, oh my God, we're into conspiracy theory area. Don't do computers. No, don't do computers. You don't need to look into anything, because even that one that was going on 4chan, I can't even tell you the words now anymore, because apparently they're scanning for it. They're not going to let anybody talk about this particular tin hat thing. Now, I've used the tag for this particular thing multiple of my videos, so some of those videos might get tagged where they're not going to be available anymore. I can't get too far beyond the idea that we are being fed these stories by lots of media for getting us a lot more these exciting waves. What are the exciting waves? It's not even emotional energy, it is simply surface clutter. And we're just talking about, it's artifacts of the machine. It's not good data. And we know about this particular kind of bad data, and we can even filter it out. And anyway, we don't want to continually remind all of you that on this particular word, I'm not going to say it, we are in search of, no, it's not censorship. It is, what the hell do I do with stuff? In other words, I don't know. I just find that when I go looking for things, there's weird displays of stuff that comes up. And I don't know what I'm going to get before I get it. And once I've got it, it's like, well, I didn't even know that was going to come up. Or whatever. Or then you're like, not going to talk about Pete Townsend, the guitarist for The Who, who's also looking around, and oops, Big Brother was watching him. It turns out that we are not only rigorously monitored as to what we do all the time, but we are mind controlled as well, because these enormous organizations with enormous funds and enormous amounts of computer power and brain power don't tell you that they have the ability to implant thoughts and hearing voices into your head. This is known as the voice of God technology, and you could look to see if that's available to look at. And you'll see all kinds of schematic diagrams, like circuit boards and whatever, that show that well, anyway. I don't know, there's endless numbers of these particular kinds of and so we are going to try to never really let go of the idea that whatever you're witnessing around you, it's pretty much the work of a lot of different kinds of things that you can't figure it out from being where you are. Because unless they tell you, you have to go collecting clues And it might take you a lot of years before you'll get to the point where you wonder, am I the creator of everything that is going on? Because some people say that, the I am God people. But, from the perspective of an individual human, we don't know how many of you really think that you are really creating your life. Sometimes these coaches try and get that idea into your head that you create your own life. And I'm going to help you make a plan to get you to what you want. Mentors, perhaps, but more for you and not for the company. And so, what else do you want to know? I keep telling you that perhaps if it's a benevolent group of people who have the mind control, they could help us remove toxic memories and things from our personal minds. And we should be able to assist people to transcend levels of consciousness. So if you want to become a Buddha, like Buddha, or you want to be just the same level of consciousness on the scale of human consciousness that Jesus had, then you would simply have the mind control designed to clean your mind. Because that's all Dr. David R. Hawkins ever said, the consciousness expert. He said, enlightenment is already there. And he said that the spiritual masters of way down the ages always came back to this conclusion, that basically your consciousness is simply full of crap, but it can be cleaned. And we don't want to tell you too many words, but samskara is one word that sometimes we use to talk about these. Wedico is another one of these things. Sometimes we think silence is often said to be where you can go to get higher consciousness. In other words, stop talking. Stop making noises and just be. You might hear a little bird chirp. And in any event, there's not too many more of these kind of things that we can talk about without involving, let's get some help from technology to help bring about spiritual enlightenment among the human population. And if you're going to try and figure out how to do it, you're most likely going to find that it was already described in James Redfield's, one of his books. He wrote the Celestine Prophecy. In one of the sequels, he talked about advanced humans who had technology to go and watch your life as if you were on TV. And what they would do is they would have highly skilled adepts, people who had very strong supernatural abilities. And one of the things they could do is they could maybe help you make a better choice in each individual situation that you run into. And so if this is going on planet Earth, and we have a lot of other stars up there in the night sky that have planets, so you can figure out that if this is like generally seen as a experiment in first contact with extraterrestrials, like out of Star Trek, where we are right now on planet Earth, we're basically going to figure that there's lots of other civilizations that have already advanced past where we are now, technologically and spiritually. And we don't want to tell you, but if they are, then they're helping us too. And do we have to give permission for them to use mind control to clean our minds? Or do they look at our minds and say they're so disgusting and filthy, those people, they actually enjoy having shit in their minds, and they will never consent to us cleaning their minds? So then, you know what's going to happen? Do they intervene or not? The answer is, I don't know. It's a good question, and I'm going to leave it at I don't know. And watch for signs from the universe to possibly give you an answer, but don't expect any one answer to be the perfect answer, because it just doesn't work that way. Because there's multiple ways of getting to Rome, and all the roads go to Rome. No, well, that was an old thing they used to say. These days, I don't think young people are going to understand it.